Hello and welcome to another College Basketball Weekly powered by the Full Court Network, LT and Sammy D. You know, we had such a great time with our next guest. We actually had a guest on the College Basketball Weekly. We decided to do a special show because this conference is near and dear to our heart. And I am really excited. I am going to sign up for High Point season tickets because Dr. Nato R. Cuban was giving out Kit Kats at the game that I watched tonight against Longwood, and I'm really pissed because I wasn't there in the flesh. I love Kit Kats.
You love Kit Kats, and you love college basketball, and you love the Big South, and you love the Huss Bus. Like, yeah, you should have been there.
And the Huss Bus continues to roll. What a game it was. High Point takes down Longwood. I mean, Longwood's a really good team. Not having the greatest record so far this year. I believe they're 5-5 in conference, 16-9 overall. But they're a team, they're sneaky good. I mean, they made it to the NCAA tournament last year, and Coach Cole Aldrich has the train going in the right track. But man, High Point, I just don't know how anybody's going to be able to compete with High Point. They're 21-5, 9-2 in conference. Damarian Williams, 14.4. Keza Giffen, 14.5 for Hamilton, 14.4 for Giza, and then you got Kamani Hamilton, 13.7. They got Bodo. That guy's just an animal. I mean, he's crazy. So good on the glass.
Yeah, and Kamani Hamilton put up 18 points, shooting 50% from the field. I mean, he had a great night against Longwood. 22 wins on the season now, 14-1 at home, 7-game win streak. I agree. I mean, High Point is the team to beat in the Big South, but the Big South is so fun to watch.
Yeah. Hey, they go to Coach Mo, baby. You know how much we love Coach Mo, and he's got near and dear because he was one of our first guests, and he came back.
Mm-hmm.
He even said, I don't know why you want me back, but we had a great time. And I'm a big fan of Jordan Marsh, 19 points per game. Yep. I mean, they're 18-7, 9-2. They're right there. And I mean, even Winthrop, Coach Prosser, 18-9, 8-4. Radford can beat some teams. The team that I think is really sneaky good is Charleston. They're 10-17 overall. They had a kind of very interesting, tough non-conference schedule. They're 6-6. Taj Kelly leads all Big South scorers with 21 points per game. I mean, a lot can happen, with these top 6 teams.
I agree. And if you haven't watched a Big South game, tune in. They got some national coverage coming up. ESPN selected UNC Asheville at Radford next Thursday, February 20th, as kind of their national wild card game. And I mean, that's going to be a good one. You throw out some names. I mean, Jordan Marsh, Toya Sullivan from Mike Morrell's UNC Asheville Bulldogs, and then the Radford Highlanders, head coached by Darius Nichols, who we're big fans of. He's got Jarvis Moss, Josiah Harris, Brandon Macklin.
See, that's 3 times real fast.
I know, right? It's but I mean, all of these teams just have such good basketball IQ. They're all so well coached, right? That's what I see in the Big South is all the coaches, top to bottom, all 9 programs they're very mature, right? Like they just play good quality, high IQ basketball. Don't turn the ball over a lot, and watch some Big South because they are a good conference right now.
Yeah, and even like Presbyterian, the Blue Hens. I mean, Gardner Webb. I mean, you name it. They're just great basketball, and we love it. And I just wish it got more media attention because I love how they're basketball focused. Now, Charleston Southern plays football in the OVC. And it was really interesting because we decided to have the commissioner of the Big South, who she's awesome. Her middle name stands, A is for awesome. She was awesome. And I just love where her and her staff, Mark Simpson, you know how much I love Mark Simpson, SID at Big South. He's just awesome to work with. The coaches are awesome to work with, and hopefully we get more of them on. I mean, Coach Huss, whether it's Coach Mo, whether it's Griff.
We've had a lot of them on. We've had Coach Huss from High Point on. We've had Coach Aldrich from Longwood. We've had Coach Morrell from UNC Asheville. I mean, it's and you and I spoke after we interviewed Sherika. We're just like, now we get it. Like you see that leadership from Sherika, and you're just like, it starts from the top. And you can see why the coaches like being in the conference. You can see why, and we talk to them, whether it's being recorded or after the interview where we have a few minutes to kind of chat. They're happy.
Few minutes. Sometimes it's like 25 minutes. It's longer than the interview.
It's a long time sometimes that, a lot of coaches have some stuff to get off their chest, but everyone we've spoken to in the Big South loves being there. Right. Like you said, it's a basketball centric conference, and, they're getting more and more national attention. The players are sticking around longer. They're not losing as many players as a lot of these other mid-major conferences. Right now, they're 16th in the net rankings for all conferences, with limited resources, which says a lot about just the quality of basketball they're putting up. Interviewing SHERIKA Montgomery. I mean, it was a blast.
SHERIKA A. Montgomery.
SHERIKA A. Montgomery. I mean, she talks about being a product of the Big South. She went to Gardner Webb, the Running Bulldogs. She talks about what it means to be Big South made, and you can see the pride, right?
Yeah.
And I think everybody else around her sees that as well, and that's why it's just from top to bottom. It's just first class all the way.
Yeah. So I figured, we had such a great time with her. You came up with the idea. Let's just do a whole college basketball weekly. We'll do a special one this week. We're going to throw it out there. Some really good games on today. High Point, Winthrop, Gardner Webb, South Carolina Upstate, Charleston Southern at UNC Asheville, and then Presbyterian at Longwood. So let's listen to SHERIKA Montgomery and hear about the Big South. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review, and follow us on our Instagram and Twitter handles. And if you're watching us on TV, or watching us on YouTube, television, or whatever it is, hit the subscribe button. We'll be back next week and enjoy SHERIKA A. Montgomery from the Big South. All right, Sam. So we've got, obviously, we talk a lot about the Big South Conference, one of our favorite conferences. Big shout out to Mark Simpson, who I love working with. Pay that man more, please, SHERIKA. But we've got Conference Commissioner SHERIKA A. Montgomery. Welcome to College Basketball Weekly.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be with you all today.
Sam, I was thinking about this when I was looking at her bio, and you've got a really strong bio, a lot of great conferences you've worked with, actually came back to the Big South. I think you took the job at the wrong time. I'm just kidding.
I've heard that a lot.
Well, no, because here's the thing. I mean, we talked, as you might not know or know, we talked to a lot of coaches, a lot of administrators, players, fellow commentators. It's a really interesting challenge and interesting times for mid-major sports. Now, I'm a former mid-major athlete, just like yourself. Sam and I, he played at DePaul. I coached DePaul. It's really interesting and really unique. I guess, how's it been going, SHERIKA?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, it's so interesting. When I was first appointed commissioner of the Big South Conference, I heard that often, congratulations, albeit what a time to become a commissioner. But I oftentimes say it, and I mean it sincerely. I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else, being a product of intercollegiate athletics, being a product, of course, the Big South Conference, and specifically for the purpose of this conversation, being a product of the game of basketball. I couldn't see myself doing anything else. And while I think we're going through arguably the most transformative time of intercollegiate athletics, probably about a year and a half ago, I remember sharing this with one of our presidents. I want us to be a part of the solution as we look ahead for the next 10, 20, 30 years of intercollegiate athletics.
Yeah. How do you find the balance of, the different components that you're supposed to represent, from the student athlete to the coaches to the university to the communities? With all these changing landscapes, it seems like there's been a huge push supporting student athletes, right? With NIL, transfer portal opportunities, the mental health component that a lot of people are talking about. How is the balance right now with all the different components?
Yeah, I'll first start with, one of the things that I share with, whether I'm talking to student athletes, coaches, administrators, communities, you name it, is, there's three components to my leadership style. And that is avocation, being able to be an advocate, being an educator, as well as being a consensus builder. So when I think about all of those myriad of constituents that you just talked about, and now more than ever, it's important to make sure that they are informed and educated. And as I oftentimes tells them, that's not always what we see on our very valued partners, ESPN at the bottom of the, at the bottom of the screen, but really what's going on? What are those real experiences? What are those real issues? As well as having an opportunity to have a pulse on the public narrative. And so I think it's the education part is huge. But then when you come back to being an advocate, whether I'm talking to a coach, a CEO, student athlete, an AD, I oftentimes say, we all may be dealing with the same issue, but that conversation may be had with those different constituents in a different way, albeit we're still trying to get to the same outcome. And that's making sure that we have inclusion of perspectives, inclusions of thoughts, and real experiences that are having, so we can come together with that third layer of being a consensus builder. But that's something that I've really valued. And last thing I'll say, with the Big South Conference, not just in basketball, with all of our sports, student athletes have always been represented in our governance structure. So when it comes to some of the changes in the landscapes and things that are going on, we're represented at the highest level by one of our student athletes. And so that's something that has remained a balance for us here at the Big South Conference.
Right. I'm kind of interested where to go. Do I go and talk about scheduling, or do I go about tournament bids? Because we deal with a lot. We've dealt with a lot of your we've had Coach Aldrich, we've had Coach Morell a couple times, we've had Coach Huss. So we really have a pulse on what's going on, especially in high major, mid-major basketball.
Yes.
I'll go with this one. Biggest thing that we heard in the offseason, especially from Coach Buss, he said it was the best question they had the Big South Conference Media Day. I'd like to pat myself on the shoulder for once in my life, because Sam gives me no love. Non-conference scheduling. What, I guess, are you and the conference doing to kind of help with that issue? Because it's really becoming a really difficult problem for a lot of these coaches, not just in men's basketball, but really every sport.
Correct. So here in the Big South, I think it's probably two things. Starting off, we have a strategic plan that's always focused on the success of basketball, but in this case, we'll focus on men's basketball. And I actually think of two things that I've had many coaches tell me, two things that are more important than anything, and that's scheduling and recruiting. So when we're talking about our strategic initiatives, regardless of where those things may fall, we're really focusing on those two buckets, whether it's student athlete experience on the recruiting side, or obviously when we talk about scheduling. And you're right. I oftentimes talk to Coach Huss, and when you're successful, it makes it even harder to go out and schedule. About 2 years ago, because we're in the third year, we've invested financially in our basketball programs. A little over $1 million has went back out to our member institutions for them to invest in the sport as they deem appropriate. I share that as it relates to scheduling, because we've had some institutions to use those funds creatively as it relates to hosting MTEs, being able to buy some of those home games, and not just home games, but pretty quality Division I opponents. And so from a conference standpoint, definitely a financial investment. We study and talk a lot about strength of scheduling and how that will play into, as we talked about previously, that seed line when we get to March. We work with Kevin Paga from a scheduling standpoint, but that's one of the things I appreciate about KP is it's not just about our conference schedule, but also being able to come in and really talk strategic and thoughtful with our coaches about how they can go out and schedule based on the team, based on the makeup that they know they have in any given year.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, as far as getting like the Big South out there, like on a national level, right? It seems like you as a conference and your colleagues in the department have done a really excellent job, working with the media. And I know you guys, I think upcoming, you have the fifth ESPN U game coming up.
Tomorrow.
UNC Asheville at Radford, I think it is coming up. Or that's next week.
That's next week. Come on, Sam.
But you have a lot of like national Thursday games, that are getting attention.
Huge.
Can you talk a little bit about how big that is for the conference and some of these programs with that recruiting and as well as the retainment aspect that's so important right now?
Of course. I mean, that's huge. And that's one of the things, that's not only built into our strategic plan, but also just my strategic initiatives in terms of serving and leading this conference is making sure that we have a presence, not just locally in our communities, not just regionally, but also nationally. And I think, in part, starting with our very valuable partnership of ESPN, that is one of the mechanisms that continues to provide that opportunity. Not only on ESPN Plus for all of our men's and women's basketball games, but to your point, having an opportunity to have those ESPNU national stage opportunities. And not only that, we've had some really competitive games. our most recent ones. The one I was just at most recently was High Point University at Longwood. And that was one, just the student athlete experience. I mean, it was packed wall to wall. Obviously, our student athletes did not disappoint with the competitive game. And so as I oftentimes tell our administrators and our coaches, a lot of credit goes to them, because they are definitely playing a level of competitive basketball that warrants that national stage and that national attention. And to take a step further, we've actually went internationally. This is our second year sponsoring a tournament in Canada. The first year we did have a Big South team to participate in that. This past year that we didn't, but that goes back to making sure that the Big South Conference, and specifically in basketball, we have not only that national presence, but also internationally with our partnership with our friends in Moncton.
Yeah. Moncton, New Brunswick?
No, Moncton, New Brunswick. That's correct.
Here's the problem.
He's a Canadian, so
I'm a Canadian.
Really,
that's the first time I've been called international. I appreciate that.
Of course.
What's funny is
those Thursday games are they're a lot of fun to watch. And I was looking at the press release that I think went out today, that it was like, the last 11 years that you guys have been, the conference has been doing these, like 58% of the games have been decided by single digits. So I mean, it's great. Yeah,
that's just everything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. After I was rudely cut off by Sam, I was going to say, you probably went to Moncton, or like Kent State went to Lethbridge, and it's damn cold up there. It is cold.
It is, and you're right. So Kent State, that was an example. That was a part of our partnership. They were over at Lethbridge, and we actually had our first women's basketball in Charlottetown in Prince Edward Island. So I did quite the tour.
Look at you
in Canada.
Look at you. So I want to talk a little bit about, I love how you guys are very tight strategically, regionally. I really like that for especially the non-revenue sports. Mm-hmm. I also like you have 9 teams. I like that. And it's very much, I don't want to say basketball focused, but it is. I mean, let's be honest. Mm-hmm. You have one team, Charleston Southern, has football, and I'm disappointed in that. They need to stick to basketball. We won't go there. How important or imperative is it with your conference commissioner colleagues to talk about conference realignment? Because obviously that's real. I mean, it's happening, and then also about banding together with the whole NCAA tournament selection, because it's going to be an interesting year this year. Let's be honest.
That's something that from a commissioner's level, and obviously we're very fortunate with the leadership of Danny Gavitt as well as Lynn Holtzman at the national office. We talk about that a lot. And I say that from a standpoint of knowing what's going on the national level. And, we talk about the NCAA tournament, but a lot of times in the Big South, it's about postseason presence. So it's not just the NCAA tournament, it's the NIT, obviously some of the changes that we've seen in terms of that net requirement, and tracking and knowing that we're on par to make sure we have a participation opportunity there. But, on the national landscape, you think about the NCAA men's basketball tournament, arguably along with women's basketball, one of the best things that we have. I mean, it's just such an exciting time of the year. And so everything we do, it is leading up to make sure not only do we have that AQ, but do we have multiple opportunities, going back to what additional tournaments are out there, but really the work that we're doing during non-conference, during conference, that's really going to put us in a position from a seed line place to really be able to go in and not just be there, but to be there and make some noise and actually get a win in the tournament. So we spent a lot of time talking about that.
Oh, absolutely.
So leading up to that, you have the Big South Hercules Tires Big South Basketball Championship. Yeah. I think there's probably a thought process that went in this past year or the past 2 years as decisions were made to move it off campuses to a neutral site in Tennessee. Yeah. What's that process like for a commissioner?
Of course. So coming in, that was one of the first things that I knew I had an opportunity to do, was to find a new home for the Big South Conference basketball championships, both men and women. For the last, I'll say 3 years prior to this, last year, we were in Charlotte at the Bojangles Coliseum, and there was a really good opportunity. But coming in, I knew I had to find us a home. And so we went long, what I'll call short term and then long term. In short term, we looked internally, and because of our strategic plan, you look around our conference, we have state-of-the-art facilities, arenas, and we had multiple institutions to put in bids, and it was selected overall by our conference governance structure, specifically our CEOs, and that's how we landed at High Point University. And while that was a phenomenal experience for our student athletes, great national stage, our coaches were pretty intentional and pretty clear. It's about being on a national or on a
how much did Coach Morrell complain?
You know what, Coach Morrell, he's great. I won't tell you when the last time I talked to him, but it's always good when I catch up with him.
Yeah.
But it was clear being on a neutral plane.
It's tough. It's tough, right?
It was something that was important. And so we came in, of course, we went to High Point that 1 year, but we knew we were going to start early and really casting that net wide. And it goes back to what we spoke about earlier, being very confident, being very bold in what we felt we had to bring to a city in terms of bringing 9 high-level basketball programs in March and to create our own version of what I'll call March Madness in a respective city. And while Tennessee, we don't have necessarily an institution in that city, it's still pretty centrally located in a footprint. Asheville being about an hour away, Radford University being a little over 2 hours away. And so this was a city that really showed, we're hungry, not only for basketball, but for high level in the Big South Conference. And so coming together, once again, our coaches, administrators all reviewed those bids and came out with a very competitive one put forth with Johnson City. And it's been a great year of planning. I know it's going to go off without a hitch, and I'm excited about it. That's how we landed in Johnson City for the next 2 years with an option for a third.
Yeah. And I like that because teams and fans can travel. And I mean, that's the biggest thing, because you hate watching games, especially like college football bowl games, not throwing anybody on the bus. And you're watching these two teams play and there's nobody there.
Yeah. What I also see with like a neutral site like Johnstown is like the community is so invested, the economic development to bring those fans in. Like, I think you guys have initiatives to like go to high school, like student athletes, and like give them that experience. I mean, it's the Big South is going to take over that town.
I mean, and we actually go back up next week, but there are over 150 Big South banners in the area. I mean, it is Mountain South Madness, and that's just a testament and just a kudos to the city, to where it's not just Freedom Hall where we're going to be located, it's Johnson City, the community. It really all tapped in to make sure that this is a great student athlete experience, both in the arena but also externally, the hotels, the restaurants, I indicated, the billboards. It's really been, we haven't even stepped foot there yet. They've really put their best foot forward.
Yeah, Sam, what you didn't tell us in 4 years, they're going to be in Monktown, New Brunswick for the Big South Conference basketball tournament. It's happening. It's happening.
If my teammate there hears about this, trust me, he will ask what is permissible if I put a bid in. I mean, he's a great partner.
Oh my God.
I love it.
Last question I want to ask you is, so you played a little basketball in your day. 85 games, started 19. You started 19 from Plantersville, Mississippi.
That is correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So what I want to ask you, in 2010 regular season champions at Gardner Webb, okay,
Correct.
Which team, okay, when you were in college in the conference, did you dislike the most?
You're probably going to say, of course, you changed that. I won't say I dislike them the most. The most competitive matchup, it was Liberty University. And I know they're no longer.
That's a political answer right there.
It's true. They're no longer a member of the conference, but it is true. If you were to go back and look at the box scores, specifically speaking for women's basketball, every one of my years, it was Gardner Webb and Liberty University. Webb, Liberty University. I oftentimes tell our student athletes, when we talk about student athlete experience, all of my years at Gardner Webb University in the Big South Conference, I played on High Point University's campus. So when we just talk about student athlete experience, I was very fortunate to have a really great one, which I think really comes through in everything that we do in our efforts today.
Yeah.
No, I love it. It's I mean, the coaches that we've had on our coaches show, I mean, they represent the Big South so well, and I mean, they talk about how much they love the conference, and then you being a product from the conference. I hear the words Big South made. I hear you say that every once in a while. And so what does that represent? What's the identity of Big South made?
Yeah. Being Big South made, I think it's really being able to be a testament of the high level experience I had in 3 areas. And that's personally, academically, as well as athletically. I was a part of a conference that really invested in me. There are things that I have an opportunity to lead and continue to be a part of that I went to as a student athlete. That is really the reason why I'm sitting here today. I knew who my commissioner was. I knew who my associate commissioner was. I knew who these people were, as well as the opportunities that could lie ahead should I choose to have a career and intercollegiate athletics. So when I think about being Big South made, it's knowing that I came to a conference with a group of member institutions that were really and truly going to invest in me in those 3 areas in a very intentional and staunch fashion.
Yeah, that's a safe answer. Don't ask Sam about his experience in
I had a great
mine.
experience.
I know, so did we. But
we were Conference USA when we were.
Yeah, I know, back in the day. So last question. Yeah, there you go. Last question I have for you. So you have 9 teams in the conference right now.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I know you're probably not going to give me the answer I want to hear, but we'll get it out of you. So 9 teams, is it tough from a scheduling standpoint to have a odd number of teams in the conference? And would you see, because I personally like that 8 to 12, and that's what we're hearing from a lot of coaches. You know, we have some that are in 16 and they're like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Could you ever see yourself maybe expanding down the road, especially with everything going on?
Yeah, I would definitely, and this isn't a safe, this is true. I can definitely see expansion. You know, that's something that we are, you know, it's always been a priority from our standpoint, but from a CEO and coming in and making sure I had an opportunity to get reacclimated, get a lay of the land. We feel very stable. And I say very stable in terms of the quality and the level of institutions, both academically and athletically, that we have. And we want to make sure that we're maintaining that level of competitiveness, that level of standard. And so we talk a lot about membership initiatives. It's twofold. It's retaining our current membership, but also being able to go out and attract others. And so with that being said, that has always been a focus. It's a continued focus. And I can see the Big South Conference expanding. And when it comes to scheduling, you know, I oftentimes tell coaches, if for any reason I contact you and say, hey, we have a new member institution, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
I have full trust in Kevin Paga. We'll get a schedule, we'll get a format that we'll be in a position to be successful. So.
Hey, Sam, I have a feeling it's not going to be Liberty.
I can say that, yeah. I'm pretty sure, you know, that FBS, that's kind of an aspect of it. Yeah, I can say that.
Well, Sherika, you're going to stick on with us for one more second as we upload. We really appreciate it. As we've said before, and we're being honest, we love the Big South. It's a great product. You're going to do really great things. We love your background with it and your pride and your Big South built. So, or Big South mate. So we appreciate it, Sherika.
Thank you both. Greatly appreciate our time today.